All right. Hopefully, we're back. Welcome, everybody. It is that time of the morning again. So, for those of you who were trying to watch the broadcast a little earlier, YouTube had a meltdown. So, the YouTube server kind of crashed and right in the middle of my stream, and it caused my stream to die. It caused Jesus to be late. So, hopefully, things will stay back up for now. But great to have you guys back. And like I said, hopefully we can keep this going. So with that out of the way, for those of you who are new, welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Terry White, and today we're going to be taking a look at how to do some photo compositing. The squirrel did it. Someone, Carol said, did I bring the squirrel? No, I'm not showing the squirrel anymore because I think the squirrel is right when it killed my stream this morning. So we'll pick a different animal today. So with that said, if you're watching this live, great. Thanks for being here. The chat is happening over on behance.net/live. I am simulcasting to a couple different platforms just in case we have an issue. But we're going to really pay attention to Adobe Live, which is where this is all hosted from. So Adobe Live, behance.net/live. I see you over there, Jesse and Sam on YouTube, but you of course want to head over to Behance. Yesterday, we did a couple of different composites. We did one kind of just this older Laura Croft theme, some assets I had sitting around that I kind of wanted to repurpose. And today we're going to do something totally different, something totally new, all new assets, things I have not worked with before. And the whole point of this is to kind of show you the thought process. So we're going to be working through a variety of different images, putting them together and the challenges of doing that. And like I said, yesterday, this is all unrehearsed. I spent hours finding the right assets, but I did not try to put anything together because I wanted to show you what it would be like if you tried to put something together from scratch, or at least if I tried to put something together from scratch. So with that said, thanks for joining me, Adam and Marcio. I believe that is the name I'm seeing over there. And with that, we're going to just dive right in and do it. Now, one thing I did forget to do yesterday during Adobe Live is I forgot to go through the daily challenge results. So there was a daily challenge yesterday, and there's one today. And I'm going to go ahead and look at both results today since I forgot. So if I don't remember, which I should remember, but if I don't remember again, right at, what would it be? It would be 11:15. I think we ended 11:30. So remind me in the chat at 11:15. Just say Daily Creative Challenge, and that will remind me too. And I think Voodoo Val tried to warn me or remind me yesterday, and I just didn't see it in the chat until after. And I was like, as soon as I ended, oh, Daily Creative Challenge. I completely forgot to look at those. So today we're going to look at them for sure because people put work into those, and we want to kind of show off what they're doing. All right. Again, I would be remiss if I didn't say, for those of you who are staying in, thank you for staying in. For the rest of us, for those of you who are taking the COVID-19 warning seriously, thank you. We are all trying to get through this together, and hopefully I can create a distraction for you today so that you can just hopefully learn some new techniques, or at least get some inspiration to go do some things. That aren't watching the news and just constantly watching what's going on. So check in on the news, see what's going on locally, but no need to watch it day in and day out all day because not a lot changes from day to day other than the number of cases. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and switch over to my schedule first. So we're going to just show you, for those of you who are joining me for the first time today, this is kind of the schedule for today. So this morning, I attempted to do the getting started with InDesign, which YouTube hiccuped and crashed. Then Jesus kind of started off the daily challenge once YouTube came back up. And right now we're doing Adobe Live photo compositing. And then after me, there will be the Adobe XD Creative Challenge with Andrea, is that Hawk? That was a small type, couldn't see it. And after Andrea, the Adobe Live is going to continue with package design with Paul Tranny, as well as finishing the day with Draw Along with Kyle Webster. So you have an action-packed day, provided that the servers cooperate. and I gotta imagine it's got to be tough on YouTube right now because literally the entire world is trying to live stream right now and trying to do things remotely. So things that companies never anticipated with bandwidth and servers have got to be taxing the systems, as we just found out. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. And again, feel free to post questions in the chat if you have them. I'll try to remember to look over and look up at the chat. Sometimes I get so into it that I don't always look up when I'm supposed to. So let's switch over to my desktop. Adobe Bridge purging the cat. This just popped up. All right, fine. So this is what we kind of worked on yesterday. So we started with that. And we ended up with that. And oh my God, the deadly squirrel that killed YouTube today. But we're not going to use the squirrel today. So hopefully just showing the picture won't hurt anything. Now we're going to do something a little bit more elaborate. So that was just a couple of images. Today we're going to really dive into a bunch of images. And so I put together all of these images. I want to kind of have like a lion roaming through the streets kind of theme. So I went and found a few different lions to work with. I found a few different street scenes to work with. I also want to work with a giraffe at some point. I want to work with a waterfall at some point. And so we're going to just start compositing all of this together to kind of create something creative and interesting. Something, again, I've never worked with any of these assets. So that is the disclaimer. These all came from Adobe stock. And I'm just going to start playing with them right now for the first time. So looking at my cities, and I kind of mentioned this yesterday. You'll notice that whenever you go look at professional wildlife photos, like these lions were on Adobe stock and the giraffe were on Adobe stock, they're usually 99% of the time going to be photographed from eye level. In other words, the photographer is crouched down to get an eye level shot. They don't shoot or photograph things standing because then you'd be looking down on the wildlife. So while that makes the wildlife look more interesting and real, and especially with this one like coming right at the camera, that looks awesome. And this person was probably laying down when they shot that. While that looks awesome, that also makes a more interesting challenge is because the composite, the thing you're going to composite it onto has to also be at that level. Because if we pick a city where it's like a drone shot looking down on the street, then your lion is going to be facing the camera from a weird angle. So that's not going to really work. So finding assets that work well together is probably the biggest part of the challenge. So finding that street level shot where it's kind of the person was crouched down or shooting down low becomes the issue, not so much finding the wildlife. That's easy to find. But finding wildlife that's not shot or photographed straight on, that is hard. All right, so let's open up this one. And again, Adobe stock image here. All of these are Adobe stock. And even this one is kind of still, it looks like the person was standing. This may or may not work because even from this perspective, the person was still taller or looking straight on from the lion's perspective. So this may not work, but I'm going to try it because there's some interesting things that I want to do over here with these buildings. That's why I kind of like this image. All right, next, let's go ahead and switch back to Bridge. There we go. Switch back to Bridge. And now which one do I want? I kind of like both of these. I like this one. And I like that one. I really like this one. But this one is even at a lower angle. So that may not work, but I'll open it anyway. And this one is, where's the other one? Yeah, this is probably the one I'm gonna use. Another thing you'll see too with most professional shots like this would not be considered a good wildlife shot, even though it's a lion with a nice white background. It's great. But this wouldn't be considered a great wildlife photo because the eye contact is not there. The subject is not looking at the camera, unless that's what you want. You want to put it looking at something else. So from a photographic standpoint, this wouldn't be a great shot. But from a graphic design standpoint, this could be a perfect shot because you might want the lion looking at whatever you're going to design on this side of the page. So just keep those things in mind as well. So I want the eye contact looking directly at the camera. So we'll open up this one too. And again, just having that, ooh, it looks fierce. Having that perspective issue, I'm going to open up one more city just in case. I think this one is photographed a little lower. Or nope, that's looking down. That's even harder. Let's go back and try maybe this one. All right, yeah, that could kind of work too. All right, let's start with the one I want, and then we'll go with the one second choice if I have to. So let's start with that one. And like I said, I think that one's going to be more challenging. So let's start with this one. So I'm going to grab this photo, and I'm going to go ahead and bring this one over to our first tab and drop it in. So that will come in at its full resolution. So this typically happens. It comes in too big, too small. You still need to adjust it either way. So I'm going to zoom out. First, before I zoom out, I'm going to hit the Command T, free transform, then zoom out. That will give me my handles. And that's just an easy shortcut, by the way, to always see all of your handles when you're doing a free transform. All right, now that I got this free transforming, and again, I'm a fan of the not having to hold down the shift key. I prefer it that way, but I know some people don't like that, so you can turn that off now. Now, when you're trying to size something for perspective to bring into another shot, you have to look at, unless you're purposely trying to make it too big or too small, you have to look at the surrounding area. So we look at this fence, we look at the seating. This lion right now would be way too big for, even though it's closer to the camera, it's still way too big for the surrounding. Look at the street lamps, look at the seating, look at everything around it, and I probably want to bring it down some more to make it look a little bit more realistic. Now we're starting to get into, okay, if it were closer to the camera, yeah, that would probably be, it would be bigger, but not way super big. And this might even be better yet. That might be a little more realistic. And again, it's up to you. You don't have to make it realistic. That's the whole point about photo compositing for design, because for design, I might want a super big lion in my San Francisco shot, or I might want a really, really tall giraffe in my San Francisco shot. So you can break rules as long as you know why you're breaking the rule. In other words, don't make it look like an accident. If you're going to break a rule, break it. Make it look like it was on purpose. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and just pull this up just a bit. And I would say something like that. All right, so now let's go ahead and zoom in, because obviously we don't want this. And again, before we even get rid of the background, what I look for is the feet. Like, do the feet look like they would be placed on this boardwalk or this bridge? And they're looking pretty good. So one way to test that before I start working on this, just lower the opacity, and look at that. Look at how well, and again, I didn't plan this. I mean, other than finding the image, I didn't like test this first. This was just my eye looking at the angle of that bridge and looking at that line and saying, okay, would this kind of work there, or could I at least tweak it to make it work? And I love it when it's dead on like this, where if we look at the feet, it looks like that line is actually standing on that bridge. So kudos to finding the right ones on Adobe Stock. All right. So we would obviously want to take out the white background, but just for giggles, let's go ahead and turn this one off for a second. And let's go look at the other lion. Let's see if the other lion would have worked, because I kind of like the way this one's walking towards the camera. So let's go ahead and pull that one in too, because, you know, if this one works, we could use this one. You could always use the one you like better. So once again, free transform, Command T, Command 0 to zoom out, PC Control T, PC Control 0. And this one might work too. We just don't know until or I won't know until I see it. So we have the other one. We have our other shot just in case. But I just like the way this one's coming at you. All right, and let's put that in. And again, lower the opacity so I can see where the feet are. This one could work too. Yeah, I can get away with that. So either one could work, but again, it was having to look at the shot and say, which city scene would the lion or the animal I'm placing be at eye level? And that's the hard part. So just because a lot of photographs most people photograph things standing straight up. And if you're tall, you're going to get that shot looking down as opposed to crunching down or kneeling down and taking the shot more at animal level, because I'm sure that's not why they took this. All right, I could make this one work too. So let's go ahead, start with this one since I kind of like this one better, and go from there. All right, so we have plan B in case we need it. So we'll call this one, and I like naming layers because I will forget, I will lose track if I don't. I know a lot of people say, who names layers? Who has time? For me, it's easier to name them rather than to look for them later. All right, we're just going to call that one city. Great. Okay, so now we have line 1, which is the one that's visible right now. We'll zoom in on it. And we'll do our typical workflow for compositing. We'll go in and do a select subject. So select subject, by the way, became a menu option. It wasn't always a menu option before. You used to have to go to like direct select tool, or I'm sorry, not direct select, quick select tool, and then choose it as a button, but now it's actually under the menu. So I can do select subject, and it did outline the lion. Great. Of course, the lion has fur, it has a mane, so we don't want to cut off the hair. So or the fur. I'm just looking around to make sure I got everything else that matters. I know this is going to be something I need to adjust. Got cut in a little bit, didn't cut in enough there, which we can fix that. And again, just checking. Okay, so now again, one of my techniques for doing a better select and mask is to give hair and fur more room to work in select and mask. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to my lasso tool, and I'm actually going to deselect some of the edge because I'm going to paint it back in with the refine edge brush. So I'm going to hold down my option key and just, again, deselect some of that edge just by circling it with the option key held down. On only the parts where there's a lot of fur, like this didn't get selected anyway, so that's no big deal. That needs to come in a little bit more, so I'm just going to hold down the shift key, see if I can do that quickly. And did I hold down the right key? Let's try that again. No, hold down the wrong key. There we go. Option key that in. And same thing here. We're missing part of the foot. I'm just going to add that to the selection. Like so. So hold down the shift key when I want to add, hold down the option key when I want to subtract. All right, that's looking pretty good from just a starting selection standpoint. Next, we're going to go in and we're going to go ahead and choose select and mask. So Noah's asking, is it still freezing? I hope not. You can't see me moving. I'll move around. I see me moving over there. Hopefully you still see me moving. I see my lips moving, so we should be good. All right. Why did the line cross the road, Jan? I don't know. Okay, so anyway, let's go ahead and do select and mask. That'll take us into the select and mask workflow. And again, oh, I love the feet. Love where the feet are going to be on this. This is great. And now, again, we cut off all that extra fur that we want back now. So we're going to switch. We're already on the refine edge tool. We're going to make it smaller. That's my left bracket key. Also, if you're using a Wacom tablet with express keys, this is the express key remote. So as you can see, just me dialing that allows me to quickly dial the brush size up and down. So if you are using a tablet, that's another benefit of having express keys so that you can use one hand to make things bigger, smaller, just grab tools, and the other hand to actually use the stylus. So here's the hands cam, and I'm just going to go ahead and paint that fur back in. There we go. All right, bringing some of that back. And again, under here where it missed, bringing some of that back. And just to clean this up a little bit, just in case. All right. Now, if I want to see what my mask looks like, I didn't show this on the earlier stream, but you can actually see your black and white mask, and you can actually see what the fur looks like, and you can even work in this mode. So as I paint, it will readjust, and I can bring in, if I think I'm missing some fur, I can go in and get those nice strands of fur with selected mask. Does an amazing job like that. You can also have your add and subtract tool here, so I can just add in this little part of the foot that was missing. So you can work in any of these modes with the selected mask. And again, I usually work on onion skin these days, so I can actually see it as I'm doing it, but you have the ability to work either way. And of course, you can bring down the opacity of onion skin to kind of see anything you might have missed and see the way this is coming into your scene. All right. Cool, cool, cool. All right. All right, next up. Let's go ahead and zoom out. Yeah, that's looking mean and fierce. Great. Okay, so next up, just some of the things we talked about yesterday and the day before. So just smart radius. I usually like to turn that on, give it a little bit of smart radius for the edges that I want to remain sharp. Here, we can zoom in on this again. So the edges around the lion that should be sharp, I want to be sharp. The edges that should be soft, I want to be soft. So again, you can turn that on and off. Not going to see that much of a difference because I'm not doing that much of a radius. But as I drag the radius slider, you can see it affecting the fur depending on how much or how little you pull that over. So that's just another one of those finishing techniques while we're in selected mask. And of course, decontaminate color to kind of take off some of that color from the original scene. Even though there's a nice sunset on the lion's right side, or my right view of the lion, this won't get rid of that, but it will kind of get rid of any reflection in the subject. And of course, you have a slider to adjust that on. All right, I'll pull that over just a little bit more. And last but not least, you do have a shift edge. If you go too far with the shift edge one way, you can bring back more of the fur. If you don't think your edge is good enough, you can shift it to the left to bring back oh, sorry. Let me get rid of the hands camera to get this edge back. All right. So for those of you that missed it because I had the hands camera in the way, again, we were working with smart radius. I think that was high enough. You saw that. And then I just came down to decontaminate color and just adjusting that slider and just playing around with that, as well as we want new layer with a mask. And I did a little shift edge, a little bit more than usual to the left, just to kind of get rid of some of this. And again, that's going to be so small, I'm not worried about it, but it's okay. All right, so now, new layer with a layer mask. We'll click OK. And that gives me my new layer with a layer mask. So now we have our lion coming into the scene. Now the color is not right. That's okay. We can fix that. Because this was taken like in a jungle environment, and this was a nice cloudy day. So if I were using photography, I would set my white balance to cloudy, but I don't have that because I don't have this shot in RAW. So next thing we're going to do is we can adjust the color by simply using the combination of techniques that I showed before, by selecting that mask, hold down the Command key. That will select the cutout that you just did with that nice, beautiful fur on the side that the mask did. And we're going to select our city and just hit Command J. That will take a silhouette of the cutout and put it on top of the lion, or put it on top. Now we're going to move it up on top of the lion so that it's really just hiding the lion behind that little silhouette. And we'll call this layer color lion, because that's what it's going to do. So once again, we'll change the blend mode of that to, oh, before we do the blend mode, we got to average it. So filter, blur, average, to just convert that all into one solid color. It's so bright, it may not make that big of a difference, but we're going to go ahead and choose the mode color and see how that toned the lion down. It's not so yellow anymore, but it's toned down too much. We don't want a gray lion either. So we just lower the opacity of that. Usually I'm around 35% when I'm doing this, but it's really, every situation is going to be different. So you might need lower than 35. You might need higher than 35 because, again, we don't want a gray lion. That would look a little too unrealistic, but we kind of want it to match the lighting of the scene, unless you don't want it to. If you want it to be a brown lion on a blue sky, that's fine. When you're doing creative compositing, all bets are off. You can do whatever you want. Okay, so now that I've got those things, the other thing I like to do when I'm compositing is I don't like to have a million layers visible at one time. Like, I don't want my layer stack to be so long I'm constantly scrolling up and down. So I'm a fan of taking multiple layers that are used together and creating a layer set of those layers. So just grouping those layers together, and we can call this layer lion. So that way, now I'm just down to 2 things on my layers panel. And if I need to get to those individual layers, I can twirl it down and get to those individual layers. So just another organizational tip. You might look at the cords in my office and say, this guy's not very organized. He doesn't really care about that. He doesn't have OCD, but I do when it comes to my layers panel. All right, so next up, that's working out great. Let's go back to our, go back to Bridge, and let's talk about what I want to bring in next. I have a few different ideas. That worked out really well, so a lot of this I won't need, but I definitely want to bring in one of my giraffes. I just haven't decided which one yet. I want to bring in one of my waterfalls. Now, the difference here is this is obviously a photo of a waterfall. That's a photo of a waterfall. We have a cloud. We're going to use that with the giraffe. But these are vector waterfalls. This is something that came from Adobe stock as an Adobe Illustrator file. So if I double click on it, it's going to open up an Illustrator. But I can place that inside of Photoshop as well. Then I have my tightrope. We're going to use that with the giraffe as well. So I guess it's time to work on the giraffe next. So the next thing we're going to do is just pick one of my giraffes. I have this one. And I like this one because it was in motion. It was walking. The ground is kind of level. Hard to get a giraffe at eye level when you're standing. So the height of it works great. I'm not really crazy about the highlight around it. Looks like it was slightly over processed by the photographer, but otherwise looks good. And of course, these are already cut out on a white background. So it's just a matter of picking one that I'd want to use, and I'd probably use this one on the left. So once again, it's time to bring in and make a decision, bring them both in. So I would probably start with this one, and you can drag and drop from Bridge right into Photoshop. You don't have to open it and drag it over that way. I'm just going to go ahead and scale this down. And where's it going to go? Like, I could obviously put it anywhere on the bridge, but I'm actually going to do something crazy and put it up here. All right, we're going to make it walk across the buildings. Something like that. Okay, that one could work. I'll turn that one off for now, because that one could work. I'm happy with that. And let's try this one. Oh, that drag and drop didn't work so well. Let's try it again. All right. In this case, I only want that one. I'd want it going the other way. So let's flip this while we got it set. I want it going that way. And that one can work too. Now you might say, well, Terry, isn't it easier to use the one on a white background because you know, it's a white background, it's easier to cut out? And yeah, no, it's if it's got fur, it's going to be the same. You're still going to be doing select and mask. And actually the white background could be a disadvantage, because typically when now these weren't photographed on a white background, obviously this was composited already. But if you photograph something on a white background, then you're going to have to worry about, don't be catch the other thing is that you end up with white reflecting onto your subject, where you have to use a lot of decontaminate colors, and it may not be enough. So in this case, it'd probably be fine, because like I said, I doubt if they brought this giraffes into the studio and photographed them. But with that white background, it's not going to be really any easier or harder if there's fur. If there's no fur, then yeah, the white would be easier. So let me zoom in on this and see what the fur looks like around the tail. Oh, I got to commit to it first. There we go, and then zoom in. Yeah, this would be fairly easy to cut out. There's virtually no fur. And because the fur on the tail is actually against the leg, so I don't have to worry about cutting that out. Now, if we go to the other one, and let's just turn that one on, turn this one off. Yeah, see that one, we'd have to worry about that with selected mask, but that's about it. Maybe a little bit of this on top. Not hard at all. So either one would be easy, pretty much the same to cut out. Maybe the one on a white background would be slightly easier. But it's really at this point, what's the better? You shouldn't be worried about which one's easier to cut out. You should be worried about which one looks better. So in other words, which one do you like better? That's the one you should go with. Let me zoom out. All right. And wrong layer. There we go. So I kind of like this one. I'm thinking I'm liking this one better. Make it a little bigger. And let me turn the other one back on. I was moving this one. Oh, still moving the wrong one. Yeah, I think for what I want to do for the tightrope act, I think the other one is going to just be a better looking giraffe. So that's one we're going to go with. All right, so we'll go with that one because again, it looks like it is actually walking. All right, we'll go with this one. We will go to the right layer. We'll call this one giraffe so we know which one it is. All right, and now we'll go ahead and someone mentioned earlier that they would appreciate it if I made my icons bigger so you can see them better. That's probably too big. Well, something not quite so small, but bigger, better. All right, so now we've got our giraffe layer selected. So we just rinse and repeat, select subject. It should select the giraffe, and it did. We just need to check and make sure it got all of it, which it probably did not. So we could use our quick select tool to kind of add in the missing pieces. All right. It missed a lot of the fur. I don't want all of it, but let's get a little bit more. Missed that entire back of the leg. Definitely want all of the leg there. Miss the rest of the foot or hoof. We all want all of that. And just taking my time to make sure it's not missing anything that I'd have to go back and add later. Missed that leg. So you really have to check on select subject because select subject uses machine learning, and so I think from what I can gather, they tested it a lot with people, not so much objects or animals. So just make sure all of your subjects being selected. All right, I think I got it all. Oh, except for whatever's going on under here. Okay, now that I think I got it all, and wait, this part in the middle we don't want. It's also hard seeing the marching ants on that green grass. Holding down my option key to subtract, not holding down anything to add, because quick select's already in an add mode. All right, those pesky hunters, what are you guys talking about? Okay, so now that I got it selected, we're just going to go in and do our same workflow with selected mask. Selected mask. Discard. Oh, cancel. Did I do that? Wrong button. Selected mask. There we go. And this is why we take time to go around it, because it just works so much better when you take the time to make sure you get all the missing pieces so that you don't have to spend that time now. All right, now that we got that in place, we can go see what it looks like against the sky. Looking pretty good, mostly, except for little trashy areas of grass right there. Missing pieces of the back of the leg right there. That's what I meant. And we're just going to go ahead and make that brush smaller and brush back in the spur or hair. I guess it's spur on an animal. And now the pieces that are missing, you can just simply paint them back in if that's easier, like that. You could also go do your quick select tool and reselect, but I think in this case it's just easier to paint it back in. And you can hold down your Option key or Alt key to get rid of things that you don't want. So things that aren't part of your subject, you can easily erase and paint out with that third tool. What is that tool called? The brush tool. Simple enough. So with the brush tool, you can add and subtract anything that might have gotten missed in your initial selection. So things like this, where it was walking on grass, so of course some of the grass is going to get picked up. You can kind of just fake it and take some of that out. And we go back to the refine brush tool, kind of refine this in a little bit more. Like so. All right, and if I think I'm missing something, rather than brush accidentally and bring something I don't want back, it's just easier to turn down the opacity to see if there's anything you missed, or turn the opacity back up to see it composite it. All right, let's zoom back out. And same thing, smart radius, just a little bit. I don't really need to do a lot of shift edge on this one, so I'm going to either go back to 0 or just slightly negative shift edge. Decontaminate colors. Probably do want that on, but let's see what that looks like as we adjust it. So this is off. Not a huge difference either way. So I could live with or without it. And we're just going to do new layer with a mask. All right, so now we have our giraffe in midair walking through the scene. Okay, so next up, hello Christy. Or Kirsty. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we got to give the giraffe something to walk on. We might also tilt it a little. So let's free transform it. And we're just going to tilt it ever so slightly that way. And we're also just going to go ahead and make it bigger while we're at it. Again, fantasy compositing, we can do whatever we want. All right, there we go. Okay, so next up, I thought it would be kind of cool if we did the giraffe with a kind of a tightrope walking act. So why not? Why not? All right, so let's go in and grab the rope from Bridge. And I think I found a rope on Adobe Stock. There it is. We'll drag that over. That's a rope. Now, in this case, I would typically never really want to stretch anything, meaning distort anything. I tend to want to keep things proportional. But there is the time where you do want something to be stretched. And that is when I hold down the Shift key. Because that rope wouldn't be that thick coming from where we're looking at it. So I'm just going to go ahead and hold down the shift key so that I don't scale it proportionally. I can go ahead and stretch it down. Okay, and I'm going to make the rope a little bit longer than I need because I might need more of it for what I'm going to do next. But let's go ahead and say okay on that. And I don't know, we can try select subject, see if that works for us. If not, it's easy enough just to select the white. Select subject does a great job. And we'll just go ahead and select and mask, which shouldn't need much. We'll just go ahead and say okay. So that'll give us our rope on a new layer. Nothing more to do to it than that. Now, as much as I would love to think that the rope would be very taut and tightly across that, we probably would have the weight of the giraffe dipping the rope down a bit. So we might want to distort the rope so that we can do that. Now, I showed you a way with puppet warp before. And by the way, we're just going to go ahead and call this rope so I know what that is. Great. All right, we got our rope layer. Okay, so now that we got our rope layer, and by the way, we also might want to pull that down below the giraffe so the feet are on top of it. Really won't matter, but just so you would have that option to reorder the layer. Now that I got the rope layer in place, we can do this a couple of different ways. My go-to for this would normally be using something like the puppet warp. But we do have, let's see if I can find it here. We do have, object. We do have transform, we have puppet warp. But what I want to do, I'm just thinking my way process through. Give me a second here. What I want. I could warp it, but so many ways to do it, so many decisions. Okay, let me try my puppet warp first. That's my go-to. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. All right. We can do perspective warp too, but all right, puppet warp. Puppet warp it is, because the thing I like about puppet warp is it lets me literally put handles on it where I want to bend it. So that's why it's my go-to. I can put as many of these on it as I want. I can control, put control points on it, on the ends, and then I can literally just bend the rope and do whatever I want to do with it. That's why I like puppet warp, because it does let me do exactly what I want to do with it. I can pull this back down, add points along the way, and yeah, I'm a puppet warp guy, sorry. That's what I like. This allows me to put this where I want. And also, because I have the ability to stretch it now, I can put that exactly where I want it to be. And I'll spin it down a little bit more. Something like that. Okay. And click OK. And then that gives me the rope the way I want it to look. Cool. All right, next up for our composite, we're going to go in and we're going to take a look at just playing around with clouds. Like, we could paint clouds in, but I grabbed some cool clouds from stock. So either way, whatever is your strength, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my stock cloud. And what I want to do is I envisioned, because again, I haven't tried this, puppet warp for the win, exactly. I envision no penguins. Well, maybe we can do penguins. We might. No squirrels. We can do penguins. No squirrels. I might want to just simply put like just a small cloud and have the giraffe peeking through the top of it. So that was what when I first looked at this picture and I thought about the giraffe walking across the tightrope. That was one of my ideas. The next thing the other thing I want to do before we're done with this is I want to just add like just a fake waterfall coming down the side of one of these buildings. Where do I want to go first? Let's do the cloud first. And let's, by the way, again, from a grouping standpoint, well, I can group it when I get the cloud in there. But let's go ahead and get the cloud in there. We'll head back over to Bridge. And like I said, I have a series of clouds I grab from stock. I love stock images that have multiple. So Sig's asking, would Liquify have been easier? Depends. It was pretty easy just using pinpoints and twisting it the way I want. You can certainly get away with Liquify as well. That's why I said there's so many ways to do the same thing. So if you think Liquify is easier, by all means, use Liquify. This was the first cloud I found, and I think it might be a little thick, which we could liquefy it and make it thinner. We could also just shrink it down. But then I found this series of clouds, and like I said, I kind of like it when stock images have, you could buy one image and get multiple versions of whatever it is in that image, like multiple giraffes, and in this case, multiple clouds. I like this one because it's kind of thin. I like this one because it's kind of interspersed in there. There's like some sky, there would be sky in there, the black part. This one looks like a bite was taken out of it. That could be funny too. Any one of these could work, especially the thinner ones, meaning thin this way. I kind of like this one. All right, so let's just pull that over. And let's see what this looks like. And we pulled it over below the giraffe, so we will pull it up above the giraffe. And yeah, that one's going to let me have more to play with. So let's get that one in there. All right, so let's just... All right, let's lower the opacity of that. Just kind of want to see what that looks like. Yeah, there we go. I'll pull that down a bit and I get something like that. I might even flip it around, have it go the other way. Just flip horizontal. Something like that. Yeah, I like it. Okay, so we'll lock that one in, pull the opacity back up. I can, I'm just thinking of the many ways I can use this. I could, first and foremost, just grab the one cloud I need, start there, put that on its own layer, Command J. That way I can get rid of all the other clouds that I may want later, but don't need right now. So now I've got just a single cloud. And I don't know, how do I want to cut that out? I could just probably just remove the black. Let's see that. Let's see what that looks like. Let's grab Magic Wand, select the black. It didn't get all of it, so let's go to select and choose similar. That'll grab all the black, and then I can add a mask and see what that looks like. Probably is hard edge, but we'll see what that looks like. And it's not going to be good because I can also already see some of the opacity issues there. So that's probably not going to do a great job. But we can see. Hold on, wrong way. Yep, that was what I meant by the edges aren't good. So just like hair, the edges aren't good when we're trying to select the black in this cloud as well. So let's undo that. Let's not do it that way. Another way we could try is just simply a blending mode. Maybe a blending mode will solve the problem without us having to do too much work. So just going through the blend modes, kind of test it. Storm cloud. So probably something in this neighborhood. Lighten, hard, where's my hard light? Nope, color dodge. Lighten or screen actually does a good job of getting rid of the black, but it makes everything else too light. So here's another trick. You might, yep, we can do the blend if sliders too, Jan. That's a good tip. So blend if it's black, like get rid of it. That's another tip we could do. But let me try the screen, because even though that's slightly too light, but now that that's been applied to that layer, we can just simply duplicate it to build it up. and that will kind of get us back where we want to be. So, and I just keep duplicating it if I want it to be thicker and thicker and thicker. So that will certainly bring back our cloud, get rid of all the black easily without us having to do any kind of weird cutouts. Blend diff sliders would definitely probably done it as well. But now I've got the 3 cloud layers, and if I don't want, I can like turn that. Oh, I kind of like it where it's, maybe 3 was too many. So I kind of like the draft showing through. So let me get rid of that 3rd one. And then I can always just merge these together. So I just have, oh, maybe not with that blend mode the way I have it, but we'll call these cloud 1, cloud 2, and cloud 2. Okay, so now we've got that in place. And again, we'll keep them separate for now. But now that I got all these things together, I want to, this one's, that's all the drafts. Okay, this one, I just want to grab all of these things that are related, and we'll group them together as well. All right, so now we have our giraffe set. And again, we can go into that set, dive down to any of those layers and play around. Okay, next up, let's experiment with our waterfall. So, and one of the other things I might do, because again, it's up to you, it's your design, but it just seemed like it'd be a little weird for the one cloud to be around the giraffe, but no other clouds in the sky, unless you want it that way. So the other thing I might do before we call it a day, those are the giraffes, these are the clouds. So I might go in and just kind of like start, like pick a different one and duplicate a few of those around the scene so that it just doesn't look like there was only one cloud in the sky and it just happened to be the one the giraffe's poking through, unless that is what you wanted to say. All right, so in this case, let's go ahead and grab a different one. Maybe one like this one. We'll Command J that one onto its own layer, and we'll also grab another one. And we can also scale these, make them different sizes, so forth and so on. Oh, wrong layer. Go back to the cloud layer, and then Command J. Okay, so now we have a couple different clouds. We can turn off those. We've got these now to play with. And we could use that same technique where we use the blend mode of screen. Same one here, screen. And then we can also lower the opacity a bit so they don't look so like we put them there on purpose. And we'll lower the opacity of this one too. Not that much. Maybe something like that. And with that one selected, free transform it. Yeah, just make it look a little bit more natural, like there were some clouds already there. And we can take that one, since we've got that one in place, we'll duplicate it. And we'll put that one over here, free transform it, flip it the other way so it's not an exact copy, and lower the size of it, and lower the position of it, and also lower the opacity of it. All right, something like that. And same thing, I don't want them all to be the same opacity. All right, there we go. Okay, merge those cloud layers. Nope, I'm gonna keep them separate. Okay, so next up, we're going to go ahead and try our waterfall. Again, haven't done this yet, and it's also about a thing about perspective. So looking at where I kind of want to put the waterfall in perspective of that building, do I have a waterfall image that would match? And that becomes the issue. So let's go back to Bridge, where I've got all my images we can see. Now, these are vector, like I said, so I have a lot more room to play. These are photos, so I have less room to play. This one's kind of dead on, so if I go back to my scene, I could just say, okay, put it down in front of this. But I kind of want it off to the side. I just kind of want to do that. And I can distort it and change the perspective. But let me see what this one looks like. Pretty waterfall, just not sure if it's going to work. Yeah, the perspective is not quite right, but I think I can get away with it. I can also distort it and kind of readjust the perspective a little bit. All right, let's get it in there first. All right, we'll use that as an option. Let's go see what our other options are. This one, like I said, is straight on. That's probably not going to give me what I want. That would have been great if I was using one of the other scenes. But in this case, let me just see if I can drag this one in. I can. These are vector. I might be able to get away with doing more with this. Okay, let me escape out of that. Since this is an Illustrator file, one of the things that you might want to do is don't fight the system. In other words, don't fight the fact that just because you're working in Photoshop that's all you can do. First of all, let's go ahead and do a save because I've been working on all this without saving. So let's do a save of our composite. Probably not a good idea to spend hours on something and never save it, even though Photoshop does have a good recovery now. But you should just go ahead and save. Better save, but what do we say? Better saved than sorry. All right, so now let's go back to this. Instead of fighting this in Photoshop, let's go ahead and just simply double click on it. I'll open it up in Illustrator. And even if you weren't an Illustrator expert and you didn't know Illustrator inside and out, doesn't mean you can't quickly just grab things, especially depending on how this file is put together. I have no idea how this file is put together because it's an Adobe stock image. So luckily, they did put the waterfall mostly as one thing, one piece for whatever reason, wasn't attached, but I don't necessarily even need that. And what I could do is just simply add that to a library so then I can just pull in that one piece. So I'm just going to twirl these other things up. Squirrel. And let's go ahead and add that in. And that will just keep that one transparent item in the library by itself that I don't have to worry about. It's 10:29 Pacific time. Yep, you're right. We're going to go ahead and we're going to do our Creative Challenge break at 11:15, so it'd be 2:15 Eastern. Okay, so now let's go ahead and switch over back to Photoshop. And now that that's in our library, which I have my libraries up here, there it is. I can now just pull that over. And it comes over whatever size it was as a vector, doesn't matter because I can always resize it. And I can kind of just put that right there and scale that up. Yeah, I like that. It's not the right color right now, but I kind of like where that's going. And because it's water, I don't have to worry about stretching it. So I'm on the shift key. Stretch it over a little bit. Otherwise, I don't have to worry about keeping the proportions or perspective. Perspective I have to worry about keeping, but not the proportions. And maybe a little smaller. Yeah, that could work. Okay, so now we need to just play around with blend modes, blending, and see if we can get that to look less black and white. Let's see here. Let's go to our blend modes. Screen for the win again. Yeah, nothing looks better than screen in this case. All right, let's go screen. Let's duplicate it to build it up. And we duplicate it again to build it up even more. We can lower the opacity of that one so we can get kind of like a 2.5. And I love it when a plan comes together. I even like the way it's just pouring into the existing water. I mean, what more can you ask for? If I, again, I did not plan any of this. It just, again, just looking at the stuff that's on stock or wherever you're sourcing your content from, and just picturing where it's going to be helps you search through the right image. I'll probably click through hundreds of waterfalls until, again, looking at the buildings and just like, okay, that one's kind of turned. This waterfall's kind of turned. It might work. I might have to change the perspective a little bit. But I had no idea it would just work like that until I saw it. Now, let's say it didn't just work like that. Let's say we go back to the other one. What could I have done with the other one if this was the hand I was dealt and it had to be that waterfall? Well, first I'd have to cut that waterfall out a little bit more. So let's just do this from a teaching standpoint. I'm just going to go ahead and just crop some of this down. So we'll do a select, we'll do an inverse selection, and we'll just go ahead and add a mask to that layer. And, oh, wrong mask. Yeah, sorry. There we go. And and again, that perspective is working pretty good too. But if the perspective wasn't working, what I would have had to have done is just free transform on the right thing. Free transform. Now it's giving me the handles around the whole thing. Yep. So because I didn't physically cut it out, I just masked it. But you would right click and go to, you could either do perspective or distort. Perspective is only going to let you slide the handles in one direction, like horizontally or vertically, whereas distort lets you literally adjust each individual handle to kind of warp it. Warp is another way, but to kind of get it into the perspective you want. Now, we also have the new improved warp tool. So we have lots of ways to kind of bend something and make it fit into what we're trying to do. So let's do just the old-fashioned distort first. So if we do distort, now these handles don't just scale, they let me twist and turn and bend things around to kind of get it the way I want. So if you were trying to the top of it should be more on that side, you can use distort to kind of distort it. Or the bottom of it should be more this way. You can kind of swing it around and get it exactly where you need it to be. So that is one of the advantages of distort. If I escape out of that, that's going to put it back to the way it was. And then again, if I go back into free transform, keep in mind before you had warp, free transform is not allowed. Oh, sorry, it's because I linked it. Let me rasterize it, and then I'll be able to do that. Rasterize. Okay, so now let's go free transform again, and let's go to warp. And now the new warp, you can literally add handles wherever you need them to be. Before, you only got a grid that I believe was 3x3 or not, 9 grid. Let me see what the default was. I believe, the default was a 3x3 grid. That's what you used to have with distort. Now, if I go get rid of that, I can literally split this wherever I want. So if I need a handle here, if I need to add another handle here, if I need to add another handle down here, I now have added these handles and I can pick up any one or group of these handles and literally distort this into what I need it to be based on the scene that I'm trying to warp this into. So just keep in mind that you've got lots of ways to kind of conform something to the scene that you're trying to put it in, especially now using the new warp. All right, make it dance a little. Maybe in After Effects a little later. All right, so you got lots of ways to do it. All right. And once I convert that in, then I could start erasing or masking out the other parts of this that I don't need. So I've got two waterfalls to choose from. I really like the vector one because it kind of just worked. But now that I got this mask, I could just simply go to a black brush. I could use a blend mode, but I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of the stuff that I know I don't want, first and foremost. Make my brush a little smaller using my, my express wheel. And the beauty of masking is that if you make a mistake, you just paint back in with white the stuff that you didn't mean to take out. I don't even mind leaving the leaves in there. We'll keep our American flag. And we get something that looks like that. Now again, you still have blend modes to play with, so you could experiment with your blend modes to see if you like something even better. That is screen again. I kind of like lighter color also works. Pen light could work if we build it up. But in this case, I'd probably just keep it as is. And maybe tone down the opacity a bit. So, you choose your way. And now that I'm looking at this waterfall, the only other thing I might not like is I might like where it's coming from. So let's bring it down a bit. And I also see some more masking opportunity. Now that I moved it, I can see more issues down here. And I'm masking back in the lamp post because this stuff would have been behind it. All right. So I've got now a couple to choose from. I've got that one or these. I like the natural one. I could go with either one. I like the natural one. I like the vector one. So you say so in the chat, natural or vector. Yep, the lion is a bit too dark. We're not finished with the lion by any means. I noticed that earlier. Now that we are starting to see the rest of the scene, the lion looks like it's in shadows. We got lots of techniques to brighten that up. But before we go back to that, okay, so before we go back to that, which waterfall did you like better? Did you like the natural waterfall or the vector waterfall? That's the natural one. I like the vector one, I think, better. I see some other masking up here I need to do. Let's just go ahead and get rid of that real quick. Natural or vector? I think I like the vector one better. Vector. Yeah, I agree. Especially because I'd have to get rid of more of this darkness because that just wouldn't be there. That's just some of the rocks. But I just like the look of the vector one better. It looks like it was more part of that scene. All right, the vectors have it. Leaves look weird, don't belong. I know. That's why I like them, because they look weird and they don't belong. But yeah, we could certainly mask those out. All right, we'll leave the vector ones now since most people are choosing vector anyway. And now let's go back to our lion. And we can, by the way, get these together and call these Waterfall. All right, now that we've got the Waterfall group together, we'll go back to the lion group. And in our lion area, which is right there, lots of ways to brighten that lion up. We can use an adjustment layer. We can use camera raw filter. We can use any number of ways. I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate that layer for now. And I'm going to go ahead and just apply that mask. I still have the one with the mask in case I need it. Now let's turn that one off. So now we have our lion copy, lion one copy. And with this one, I'm just a camera raw nut, so I'm going to go in camera raw, but just keep in mind, if you don't want to use camera raw, you have an exposure adjustment, you have levels adjustment, you have curves adjustment, you have lots of ways to do that. So let's just go into convert for smart filters. That'll put the lion in a smart object. And now we can go in and we can say that we want to do a camera raw filter. All right, so now with camera raw filter, we could just bump up the exposure. That's pretty easy, make the lion brighter. We could also add the spotlight technique that I used yesterday, but I think just making the lion brighter will probably do it. We can also, while we're here, make the lion a little bit more vibrant. Gold lion, not too gold though. And maybe add a little more clarity to our lion, make it stand out a little bit more. And if we zoom in, we can see some of these things. And let's see. So that's before, that's after. So yeah, we can definitely brighten up that line. Overdo the shadows, let's pull those back. This is why I like camera raws, because you just have sliders. It just makes it easy. All right, so now we'll click OK. And we get a brighter line. And because we added that as a smart filter first, we can always turn it off, go back to the original, we can double click, get right back into those same camera raw sliders where we left off. So that was the point of making that smart object layer first. All right, guys, what do you think? Coming along nicely. We're going to switch gears and head over to the iPad after this. Wouldn't it be easier if you could see the rest of the image? Yeah, that's why you might want to use an adjustment layer. I'm just a camera raw person. I guess it depends, because for me, I just knew the line needed to be lighter. I didn't necessarily need it to be light in context with the rest of the image, even though technically it is. But yeah, you could certainly do it with an adjustment layer, and therefore you would still see the rest of the image. All right. We're going to add some text to this. Just trying to think, is there anything else? Let me go back to my list of images to make sure I didn't leave something off that I wanted. I think I got everything I wanted to use. We used our rope, we used a lion, we used a giraffe, we used some clouds. All right, so yeah, we got all the pieces in. So now let's go ahead. Love it, but the lion is about the same color as the boardwalk. Well, that's what color lions are. So what color would you prefer the lion to be? All right, what I might do though, now that I've got it there, I might just go ahead and make it a little bigger. Even though realistically it wouldn't be that much bigger, but we'll go ahead and make it a little bigger so it stands out more, because it is closer to you, closer to the camera. Okay, so add a little text in. And we're going to shoot this up. Shoot this at the top here. And I don't know what we want to say. Titling scenes is one of my weak points. So what would you call this? A day in the wild? San Francisco in the wild? Some highlights on the line by yellow will help. Okay, so someone just really want that line to stand out more. It's got highlights on it. Remember, look on the right side. It's got some highlights on it. We could add more, but if you want it to be yellower, I can certainly go do that. All right, perhaps you could flip the line. The sun's coming. That's a good point. Flip the lines because the sun's coming from the other side, if that is true. Yeah, looking at the building up there, the sun is coming from that way, so we can certainly do that. This was the font we used yesterday, but we can certainly change that. Or wild in San Francisco. All right. People are just like really wanting that lion to be different. So let's go work on the lion a bit more. We'll come back to the text. All right, let's go back to our lion scene. So first and foremost, this was the one we're working on. We can certainly free transform the lion and flip it. That way the sun is coming from that side. I agree with that assessment. Now, as far as bringing in more highlights, we can certainly do that. That's a quick, easy thing to do. Let's go ahead and zoom in. Like I said, it is pretty gold and pretty bright now, but certainly we can add more. Let's work with the inside there. And outside in this case. We certainly can add some gold there. I think that's a bit much. And let's see. Cut down our dehaze. Let's try it this way. Thinking something more like that. Let's see if you guys like that. How about that? I'm gonna be the creative director at this point and say that's about where I want it to be. I wouldn't want any more than that. Because we do want it to be the main subject, the first thing your eye goes to, but we don't want to take too much away. Now I could, again, add some of that color treatment on the sides there where it might be a little bit more brownish, tannish, but I think that really just makes it pop and stand out, just having that part isolated. Okay. Agreed. Yep, definitely having the shadow on that side complements the image, especially with the light technically coming in from that side based on where the building is. Okay, what do we want to call this? So we did wild in San Francisco. We're going to change the font. We could call it whatever we want. Let's look at fonts while you guys are thinking about titles. We're not going to call it squirrel. Okay, kind of like abolition. I'll mark that as a favorite for now. That could be interesting. Pandemic 2020 aftermath. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. I like 1, 2. There, that's it. Now you won't know what it says. So many fonts, so little time. Thing I love about Adobe fonts is so many different selections, and then the thing I hate about Adobe fonts is so many different selections. I like the San Francisco part. I'd probably change the wild to something else. What font is that? All right, let's keep that one as a favorite too. All right. Enforcing social isolation in San Francisco. You guys are great. Let's just look at our favorites. I want to see what that looks like. Hang on. I like that font. Not for all of it, but I certainly like that one. There was another one I liked. I like that one too. It's kind of got like that Wild West theme flavor going. Beastly. All right, let's just turn off the favorites now. All right, let's just, I know what I want, a sans serif. Let's skip the rest. Just give me, not slab serif, sans serif. There we go. Skip the rest. Let me just see these. All right, we'll go with that one. All right. King in San Francisco. Let's see what that looks like. Now the font's wrong. But yeah, I can live with that. Just playing around with different colors from the image itself. Something a little lighter. Not that light. All right. Alrighty. Comic Sans. Not gonna happen. You guys would never let me live that one down. Now I'm not liking, hang on, there's one more thing here. All right. And for now, I think we have it. Okay, so we've got about, and thanks for the suggestions, folks. Always great when we can do group group design here while we're staying inside and staying home. I'm liking it. There's always little things I can nitpick and tweak, but I like where this went in a relatively short amount of time, having not worked with any of these assets in any way whatsoever before. Okay, let's go ahead and save this, which I think we just did. I'm gonna go ahead and close it now. We're gonna head over to, let's close up some of this other stuff we don't need. That's the line we ended up using. That's the one we didn't use. Even though that one probably had better color. That was the scene we didn't use, even though we could have put the giraffe up there. And this we could have changed, like put our own message there from a graphic design standpoint. So that would have been kind of cool. But I like it. And then we can always put little other elements, like little other penguins, someone said earlier, sitting on the sides there. Got to go to dinner, getting cold. Well, definitely don't let the food get cold, but I'm going to continue on. We're going to switch over to the iPad, and I'm going to work on a scene there. And because if I keep looking at that, I'll just keep looking for things I want to change. All right, so let's move on. When is it done? When you stop working on it, that's when it's done. All right, let's switch over to the iPad now. Since we're compositing across multiple screens. And I'm just going to rest it here for now while I bring it over so you can see it. All right, there we go. So I've got my iPad Pro here, kind of left over from before. Thanks, we're going to do the challenge in probably about 10-15 minutes. So just give me another 10-minute heads up. I'll see if I can get through this in that 10-minute time frame, but I think you'll kind of see where this will go pretty quickly. All right, so compositing on Photoshop, of course, you're not limited by pretty much anything. You can just put together anything in your mind. Compositing on iPad, we're getting there. There's a lot of things you can do with images and putting them together. Masking, you don't have all the same tools. You don't have all the same effects and filters, but you've got a lot of stuff there to work with. So here I've got Photoshop. I'm just going to go ahead and tap on it and open it. The Explorer scene is the one we did yesterday. That one was saved over to Cloud Docs. As I said before, remember we added that drop shadow yesterday in Photoshop on the desktop. So that shadow is there in this version from the cloud. But we're going to go ahead and close that one. And now we're going to create a whole different new scene. So let's go ahead and import and open. We're going to get this from our Files tab. Here are the images I want to work with today. And let's go ahead and grab this first scene from home. These are all Adobe stock, by the way, so nothing that I photographed. Now that I got this scene here, I'm just going to go ahead and it's just a nothing sky, someone photographing up from the bottom up, and we want to just make this look a little bit more dramatic. So one of the first things I might want to do is I might want to go ahead and just crop this down a bit. I don't need that much of the foreground. So just let me get that out of the way now so it's not distracting me. Now that I got the foreground that I don't need out of the way, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add another image in. We're going to bring in just a better sky. So let's go to Files. We'll bring in the Milky Way. We'll pull that one in and move that one up and over. And double tap by mistake there. We'll pull that one and scale it. Great. Got our better looking sky in now. And we'll now just need to blend that in, obviously, to be able to see the background. So we can go to our blend modes. And unfortunately, I don't get the preview, so I will just literally have to walk through them. I don't have a hover state where I can just drag and see them. But I can see that screen is not going to be the savior on this one. Hard light looks pretty good. I might go with hard light. Hard light is still my favorite choice so far. Hard light's the winner. All right, so hard light's what I want on this. We'll just go ahead and subtract that out. And even though I don't need it on the ground, I kind of like the way it's darkening the ground. So I'm going to go back to that and just make this bigger again. So we'll just free transform that, and we can actually just pull that straight down. There we go, something like that. Okay, so now that I got that in place, one of the things I will need to do, though, is I will need to make this darker. And I mean, not the top part, I mean this part. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that layer. And you'll see why I need to make it darker in a minute. We'll set the blend mode for that city layer, or that house layer. And we'll set that to multiply. That will just make it darker. And we can just keep doing that to build it up. But I need the foreground, or the building at least, to kind of match what that night sky would look like if it were being reflected on it. So in this case, we're going to leave it like that for now. I might come back and build that up more, but we can go back to our sky layer now. And the reason I need to do that is because while the Milky Way would look great in the sky, you wouldn't have stars on the ground. You wouldn't have stars, on the rooftop itself. So in that case, we're just going to go ahead and add a layer mask to this, like so. And now that I've got the mask there and we're painting on the mask, we'll just switch our foreground color to black. We'll grab our black paintbrush. We'll make our brush soft, but we'll make our brush bigger. There we go. And we're just kind of taking off some of that starscape off the things we don't want it on. And so I don't need it on the ground. This is why our ground's going to need to be a lot darker. And I don't need it in the base of the trees. So just kind of painting some of that back out, down off the ground where it doesn't belong. I don't mind it reflecting in the windows, that's okay. But I definitely don't want it on areas of the photo where it technically shouldn't be. Okay, so like I said, knowing that I've done that now, and by the way, let me just fix this one little area up here and fix some of these glows that I accidentally created. And now that I've done that, we still need to go in and darken up that foreground just a little bit more. So I'm going to go back to that layer that we already made. We'll just duplicate it one more time. And every time I duplicate, it's just going to keep getting darker. We can also just apply like an adjustment layer to it as well to darken it, but the multiply works well. Okay, and let me just kind of paint just a little, undo. Go back to that mask and just ever so slightly paint out some of that in the middle. Okay, cool. So now that we got that in place, next thing we're going to do, and we're going to get to our creative challenge just a moment here. We're going to add another element in. And let's go ahead and add in. We're going to make, yesterday I painted a moon. Today we're going to use the real moon. But we're going to go ahead and do a couple things to this first. Let's get this up in the sky. Right about there. That's where I want it. And once we get that in place, the next thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and select that object. So we'll just say select subject. And now that we got that selected, we'll go ahead and mask that out. And now that we got it masked out, we're going to apply yet another mask while we're on that mask that we just created. We're going to go ahead and grab the elliptical marquee. And remember I taught you yesterday the tip for the touch modifier. So if I hold down the touch modifier, it's selecting my elliptical marquee to be a perfect circle. But if I swipe up, then I'm saying be a perfect circle from the center. In this case, I don't know that I need to swipe up, but let's see. Yeah, I don't want to swipe up in this case. I just want to constrain it to a circle that I'm going to draw from like here out. So in other words, I'm just picking an area of the moon that I want to slice. Something like that. Okay, so now that I got that selection made, we'll switch back to our foreground color. We'll go ahead and grab our paint bucket and we'll just dump black paint on that mask to kind of cut that out. All right, so now we'll deselect and we kind of got that looking the way I want. That kind of happened. We probably darken a little bit, but you know, it's fantasy, so we can leave it a little lighter. The next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and need zombies. We're going to go ahead and bring in our next subject here. And I'm keeping an eye on the clock because I don't want to forget about the creative challenge. Let's go to our files area here and we'll bring in this ladder. And you might see where this is going now. Yeah, let's put that like right about there. And we'll go ahead and let's try select subject. I didn't have select subject when I first did this. Let's see if that works with a mask now. Not good. The ladder you would never get to climb. All right, let's deselect that. Too many missing runs. All right, let's go into, we'll do a quick select. That's when select subject doesn't work. We'll do a quick select, and all I need to do while I've got that quick select done is go to the menu and choose my good old-fashioned select similar. So now with select similar, that will select all the white, and then I can invert it. Let me undo that. Invert, and then mask, and that will mask it out. Okay, so now that I got the mask in place, and again, things that we could do to make it a little bit darker. You could put a lake on the ground. Yeah, if I had a lake to use, I could, and if we had time. But we're going to do something else. We're going to add another thing on the moon itself. We'll go back to our files. And I found this nice little house that should work nicely here. And again, I haven't worked with this photo in Photoshop on the iPad yet with this latest version. So I'm going to use the new object select. And let me just see if this will work. Just drawing a selection around it. And yeah, it works great. So that selected that house. Of course, it selected the windows and little pieces in there that I would need to mask out. But I'm just going to go ahead and say mask, and that will mask that out for me. And we'll then go ahead and we're going to move it, and we're going to kind of blend in some of those window areas as well. Since we have that mask, we can go ahead and paint those in. All right, so let's go ahead and make the brush a little smaller. And we'll just mask out some of those windows. Again, I take more time and zoom in, so I'm getting that just right. I know I'm cutting off pieces of the house that I really want to keep. But for the sake of rushing through this, I'm just going to go ahead and do this. And plus, I'm going to make it really small anyway, so it's not like you're going to see a lot of it. Hang on, let's grab a handle. Why am I not able to scale this? There we go. All right, so something like, maybe like that. Maybe a little bigger. Maybe a little taller. All right, we'll get that in place, and we'll go ahead and pull that layer down. Should be behind the moon, behind the ladder, and we're getting there. So, what more can we do? We can, I'm still not happy with the foreground. Let's go back to that foreground layer. And let's add, oh, undo, I don't want to add a layer. Oh, let's add a clipped adjustment. Let's go in and just simply bring down the exposure on it. Let's see what that does. Oh, hang on. Is that bringing down exposure for everything? Where's that Milky Way layer? The Milky Way layer is right there. That should work. Let's go there. Hang on, one more thing. Let's add that clipped adjustment. Let's see if that works again. I didn't like what it was darkening. Well, I guess, yeah, technically it would be darkening everything. So let's get everything dark. And get out of this. There's the adjustment. Let's switch to the layer. And let's see if we can fill that with black. That will hide it everywhere. And then I can paint it back in where I need it. So just darkening that foreground a bit more. Then I can go back in and adjust it so it's not so dark. But the ground just wouldn't be that bright under this lighting. All right, so now if I go back, go to that adjustment, and not make it so dark, then I can control just how dark the ground is. All right, great. Okay, last but not least, let's add some text. And we'll just go ahead and say, live on the and we'll say done. And then we'll put our text layer up to the top where it belongs. Live on the, And then we'll add more text and we'll say moon. There we go. And of course, we went through the whole font thing yesterday. I don't have time to really play with fonts right now, but we'll go ahead and position that. We'll go ahead and scale that. All right, that's one thing I don't like with using the on-screen keyboard. It's in my way. Make that bigger. Now we can move that down. And then we can take our other text, our original text there, and we'll just move that over. All right, we'll play with fonts and colors and all that later, but just to give you an idea of some of the compositing you can do quickly and easily on the iPad. And again, adjustment layers for any one of these pieces to kind of darken that ladder down a little bit more, and maybe mask off the top of the ladder or scale the ladder down a little bit so it's not covering so much of the house. I'd zoom in and just kind of really treat those windows a little bit better. So things like that. Okay, so before I run out of time, let's head over to, and by the way, I saved just by closing that automatically saves as a cloud document, so it would be available to me in Photoshop to finish off if I wanted to do more things to it on the desktop. All right, now let's go ahead and switch over to Discord, where we've got our two daily creative challenges, one from yesterday and one from today. That's how we're going to finish things off today, just taking a look at those challenges. So yesterday's challenge was compositing. Tune into your host, Jesus, which shows you how to do compositing. So it was basically composite, create a superhero inspired composite using blend modes and adjustment layers. And they gave you a starter file to work with. And then today's challenge was design a book cover, add two images together, and use color channels to create a double exposure effect to create a book cover. So these challenges are literally daily. You can head over to our Discord channel, which I believe is linked in the chat. It is at the top of the chat. So if you wanted to know, how do I get to Discord? The link is there in our Behance.live's chat. So if I head over to current challenge, that will show me what's here. So challenge 5, I took a lot of troubles with light to match them. Scroll down. And again, double exposure with two people, cute. Double exposure with multiple images, including the flames. I like it. I like that. I like where this went to with two different images there, especially the way they kind of just blended in the face. That's pretty cool. I love seeing your multiple images that you put together to make that. So great work there. Oh, wow, this is amazing. That's super cool. So, love that. Who's that? Ryan? Great job, Ryan. This one's cool too. I don't know, what are you kicking through there? Kicking through coronavirus. I love it. Awesome. Slice that virus in half. Flatten that curve. All right. Again, lots of flames there. Great. Somebody's on fire. Pardon the pun. Cool. Okay, I'm not sure what I'm looking at here. See the after photo of my above and my daughter. Okay. I'm not sure what's going on with that one, but I guess combining multiple people. Let's ride. What's going on here? Kind of creating that motion effect, combining multiple images together and keeping in mind the color tone difference. Good. All right. Stock images, putting that all together for this. Let's see what this looks like. I commend the amount of work you put into that. Good job. Hooked on flames. All right, I'm trying to see the differences here. See what you did there with the reflection. Yeah, there's, yep. Cool. Very nice. Very nice. Swap faces in Photoshop. Oh, that's a video. That was a tutorial. Very nice. All right. Very cool. I like the glows you've done with the rope. That probably took a little bit of time to get that to look right. Awesome. You guys are really good at combining faces. I'm impressed. What is going on here? Shooting the light out, okay. All right. Wow. Love it. Again, combining multiple images, it's more about finding the right images that would work well together and keeping the perspectives in mind. Great job. Love it. Even when you're working with faces, finding faces that are that are matched enough to where like they're looking straight on or looking to one side or the other. Getting that the head size is the same, all of that is the eyes the same size or making them fit in. That's all challenging as well. These must be the book covers. Good, good, good. Here's the double exposure. One of the double exposures. Good job. More book covers. And I love when you show it actually on a book cover. That makes it look more real. Nice design. I don't know why I like this, but I do. It's just interesting the way you made it so she's underwater. Awesome. Nice job with the cat and the rock. It's one of my favorites so far from what I've seen today. And unfortunately, we are out of time. Oh, I reached the end. Great. We're out of time and I reached the end. Lost in the City. Awesome. Outbreak. Nice job combining those together. And I have had a blast today showing you guys this stuff and looking at the work that you guys have been doing as well with the creative challenges. So with that said, next up, I believe, is the Daily Creative Challenge for XD, based on the schedule I showed earlier. So thank you, YouTube, for staying up the entire time. we're going to go ahead and hand it off to the Adobe Live Studios. And I will be back tomorrow for my, my regular Friday photography masterclass at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern. So hope that you guys got something out of today. I hope that I showed you something worthwhile. And cheers, and stay inside and stay healthy and stay learning. Bye, everybody.